It's Ricky Rich with Black Primacy with a quick question. Have you downloaded the Black Primacy app yet? If you haven't, don't worry about it. I just wanted to remind you that it is the number one way to find black owned businesses near you. Whether you're looking for food, fashion, or services, we've got you covered on this app. So download it now and start supporting black owned businesses in your area today. All right? Link in the description.
So back to Pop and Eddie and them, I think the Nixon administration, so Judge Fiken, who was the chief federal judge of the Jackson 32-man conspiracy case, he was appointed to the federal judgeship by Richard Nixon. Literally at the same time that Judge Fiken is being appointed, Richard Nixon is giving these speeches about empowering the black man, giving him his piece of America, that if America wants to end all of this social tension, that the black man has to be given some economic opportunities. If you talk to any black man from the early 70s, it's when a lot of black franchise owners got their first McDonald's franchise, Burger King franchise, car dealerships, the Dick Harris's, Porterfield Wilson's right here in Detroit, Dick Harris' first Cadillac dealer, Porterfield Wilson, Pontiac dealership, on and on and on. The Nixon is that basically, if to get a small business, a SBA loan, if you're a black businessman in 72, you just need to have a pulse and a company. The government would give you some money to get off the feet. A lot of the black wealth that got created that exists right now, if you trace it back, it goes back to that Nixon administration, SBA funding, and just a general government atmosphere. They got to stop burning up our major cities. You got to put it in some perspective. There's 72 in Detroit. Just 5 years earlier, you'd had the most violent riots in the country's history. We're not going to do that anymore, right? What is the morale? What does it do for a community when a fat black man is riding in Cadillacs and has so much wealth he can throw money out the window? Does that paint a picture of the people that are being oppressed and discriminated against, or does that paint a picture of obviously some black men winning, as the kids would say nowadays, some black men getting some W's, and there was so much street money floating in the African-American community in the early 70s in particular. I can go get me a black bandana and a black leather coat and be broke waiting on the Hamilton bus, or I can get with Marzette or Claxton, Eddie Jackson, and I can be riding the Cadillacs and buying mink coats for me and my one. Looking back on it. And that's why I was a member of the Young Republican Party in my freshman year at campus, because taxes are bad.
So would you say you grew up in your young childhood was kind of like a magical Camelot-y type of?
I didn't know it at the time because we were young, but yeah, it was a fantasy, me and Eddie Jr. and his sister and my sister. Now, let me not candy coat it. It was a fantasy, giving the fact that your dad is that you're growing up in that your childhood is tainted with the fact that conversations about your father going to prison is always like the number one conversation of the day.
So there's a dual thing going on. Your father, he died in 71. So that that whole Camelot era is also impending doom.
Right. The backdrop of the best at times is the worst at times, because in the end, it's daddy may have to go to jail. Yeah. So it's Camelot on one end, and it happened so quick that me and Lou spoke about this. At the same time, we had a maid. At the same time, my mom had a maid. Her mom is working as a maid. Literally at the same time, my grandmother is a maid at the then cleaning lady at the Book Cadillac Hotel. At the same time that my grandmother is getting paid to clean up strangers' rooms. At the same time that we have hired a senior black woman to clean our home and to cook for me and my sister.
So your grandmother refused to stop. What was her feeling about it?
Again, just different time. She liked her job, actually, because it gave her every day, her and her friends, they hung out. Her co-workers were her friends, right? I love and admire my father, and I'm his namesake, and I've often said I'm not sure if he should win the Greatest Father of the Year award or he who has contributed to the delinquency of a minor. So the first time I broke the law at my father's bequest, I'm in high school. Him and Eddie are doing time together in Milan from the original case in the 70s. And I'm up in Milan visiting him, so I'm like a junior in high school. So I was old enough to drive. So I was 16. Eddie Jr. is 18 months younger than me, so he couldn't drive. And my father says to me, we get up from the table for my mom and sister and eat. We're at like the vending machines in the visiting room. And he says, Eddie baby gonna be talking to you and he's gonna need you to do him a favor. I didn't think no more of it, right? And so that next day, so we used to go visit Pops on Sundays. So that next Monday, I catch up with Eddie Jr. and he was like, your Pops talk to you? And I said, yeah, he just said something about you was going to ask me to do a favor. And Eddie Jr. went on to explain that his father had asked my father to drive Eddie Jr. up, that we were going to do a visit, a 4-man visit. Me and Eddie baby would go visit my pop and his pop, and that we needed to smuggle some marijuana into Milan Federal Prison. And so Eddie put the weed in some balloons, and I drove him up there, and I knew exactly what was going on. He had the weed on him, not me. And we had been visiting our fathers in federal prison, so we knew, make sure you don't have a belt on, no change, nothing metal. It's a pretty, Milan, I think, was mid or low level, but at that point, it was nothing like visiting Atlanta. It was a pretty much more security at the airport than there was in Milan as far as going to visit somebody. If you didn't have anything metal, the metal detector wouldn't go off. There's just no reason at all to get searched. So we were very confident that it would be that the point would be the transfer, at the point where we have to get to the table and transfer and Eddie Jr. has to actually hand his father the marijuana in the balloons, which his father will then swallow.
All right, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please check out the other content that we have on this channel. But before you go, I wanted to remind you again not to forget to check out the Black Primacy app. It is the best way to connect with Black-owned businesses near you. They need your support. We need your support. Link in the description.